Hello everyone, welcome to EduRev, bringing you the current affairs that truly matter for your UPSC preparation. Today is the 16th of October. We're aiming to pull out the vital information and context that you really need for your UPSC preparation.
Exactly. We're not just skimming headlines, we're connecting the dots across governance, international relations, and crucially, that intersection of technology and India's economic path.
Yeah, we've got a lot to cover. Sources point towards some pretty major shifts. India's digital future, its global connectivity plans, and even the fundamental stability of some cities.
It's a dense stack today, definitely, and synthesis is key. We need to grasp why India's strategic autonomy feels, pressured from global flashpoints, but also perhaps weakened by some basic failures in domestic finance.
Okay, let's unpack that. We should probably start with that big announcement, right? The huge vote of confidence in India's digital future, Google's AI hub in Andhra Pradesh.
Yes, that's a landmark moment and directly relevant for your GS3 prep, science and tech. Economy, it hits both. Google's committing, what is it, $15 billion over the next 5 years.
$15 billion. That's their largest single investment in India ever.
Largest, yes, to set up a high performance AI data center in Visakhapatnam. And importantly, it includes a new international subsea gateway. That's a big deal for boosting India's global digital connectivity.
Okay, so for someone studying this, help us differentiate. What makes this AI facility different from, say, the data centers we already have? Why is this investment so strategic?
Right? Good question. It really comes down to the sheer power and the type of processing. Your traditional data centers, they mostly use CPU based servers. Think web hosting, email, that sort of thing.
Standard stuff.
Standard stuff, exactly.
Yay.
But an AI data center, that relies heavily on high performance GPUs, graphical processing units. You need those for the really massive computational tasks.
Like training those complex AI models we hear about. Image generation.
Precisely. Training models, image generation, complex video analysis, and that high performance need translates directly into, exponential energy demands much, much higher than traditional centers.
Ah, okay. That makes sense. So it's not just a big economic number flashing on the screen. It ties directly into India's clean energy targets, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. The projected economic impact is huge, sure. They anticipated contributing like $15 billion back to the US GDP from 2026 onwards. So benefits flow both ways.
But there's a cost, or at least a challenge, powering this massive digital push. Well, it shines a spotlight on India's need for a sustainable energy, right? And maybe even a vulnerability.
A huge vulnerability. And that leads us perfectly into the next piece, the critical factor in clean energy. Because if you zoom out, India has these immense clean energy ambitions.
The 500 gigawatts by 2030 target,
Wow, and
net zero by 2070.
exactly those. But that entire transition, everything from EVs hitting the roads to building out solar and wind power, it all hinges on securing a steady supply of critical minerals.
We're talking lithium, cobalt, rare earth elements, the building blocks.
The absolute building blocks. And here's the difficult political and economic truth. India is overwhelmingly dependent on imports for these minerals.
And that dependence isn't spread out, is it? It's concentrated, China mostly.
Primarily China, yes, controls something like over 60% of global mining for many of these and nearly 90% of the processing. That's dash.
Yeah.
That's a massive strategic exposure, a real Achilles heel.
So what's the domestic response then? India must be scrambling to fix this.
There's definitely movement. We saw those major lithium discoveries announced, 5.9 million tons estimated in Jammu and Kashmir and Rajasthan. That was big news.
Huge news.
And the policy framework is trying to adapt. The Mines and Minerals Development and Regulation Amendment Act from 2023. That's specifically designed to bring in the private sector, incentivize exploration, try and speed things up.
It's fascinating, isn't it? How science and tech, the economy, and the environment are just completely woven together here. India's success in becoming, say, a digital leader and meeting its climate goals, it all comes down to getting these minerals.
Completely intertwined. And this forces a really nuanced kind of dual strategy. It can't just be about finding and digging up more minerals domestically. That takes time, it's expensive, environmentally sensitive.
Right.
It has to also include a really strong focus on the circular economy.
Hmm.
Think about the battery waste management rules from 2022,
Mm-hmm.
setting recycling targets, recovering materials from old batteries.
So if you can't fully control getting it out of the ground, you have to get much, much better at reusing what you already have.
Yes,
Minimize that import reliance.
exactly. Aggressively minimize waste and dependence. It's not one or the other, it has to be both.
Okay, that mineral and energy dependence, though, it links straight back to global risks, doesn't it? All the domestic planning is great, but what if the trade routes themselves are shaky? Let's pivot to GS2 international relations. Geopolitical flashpoints.
Yeah, perfect transition. Let's talk about the uncertain future of IMS, the India Middle East Europe Economic Corridor. Remember that? Big announcement at the G20 summit in 2023.
I do. The multimodal network idea. Ships to the UAE, then rail across Saudi Arabia, Jordan into Haifa in Israel, and then onwards into Europe.
That's the one, a really ambitious vision.
And the strategic goal was pretty clear, wasn't it? A direct counterweight to China's Belt and Road Initiative. Diversify supply chains, reduce dependence on, say, the Suez Canal.
Crystal clear purpose.
Yes,
But here's the rub, the geopolitical paradox for India right now. The entire corridor depends fundamentally on regional stability, particularly in the Middle East.
and that stability. Well, it was kind of built on the Abraham Accords, wasn't it? Normalization between Israel and some Arab states.
Precisely. The viability was absolutely predicated on the stability fostered by those accords. Now, our sources clearly show how the surge in West Asian security tensions, we're specifically mentioning the October 7th Hamas attacks and the terrible conflict in Israel and Gaza, see uh, how that's just thrown a huge shadow over IMS.
Yes.
Deeply jeopardized the initial optimism.
Wait a second though, if this massive multi-billion-dollar project hinges on a key node, Israel, which is now deep in a major conflict, isn't India kind of gambling its strategic diversification on, well, incredibly volatile Middle Eastern politics? How solid is that bet right now?
Look, that's a critical question, the risk factor. It's shot up dramatically. There's no denying it. For your UPSC prep, the key insight here is seeing just how quickly regional conflict can derail or at least significantly delay these major global infrastructure projects.
Especially ones designed to bypass existing choke points like Suez.
Exactly. IMX is a brilliant concept, strategically sound on paper perhaps, but real world conflict dictates the timeline, dictates the feasibility. It's on hold realistically until the situation stabilizes, whenever that might be.
And this tension, this rivalry, it plays out elsewhere too, right? Like the battle for supply chains, specifically over rare earths again. US China tensions flaring up there.
Yes, China's near monopoly. Remember that 90% processing control we mentioned? They are using it, imposing strict export regulations, which then prompts the US to threaten things like massive 100% tariffs.
So China is effectively weaponizing its control over these critical materials, using it as geopolitical leverage.
Absolutely. And these rare earth elements, they're vital for everything defense tech, high end manufacturing, green tech too. India's immediate import volume might seem smaller, around 2,270 tons last year, but the strategic implication is huge. We have to accelerate our own capabilities.
Things like deep sea mining exploration or building new processing parks domestically.
Both. Anything to reduce that external dependency and gain more strategic autonomy, it's crucial.
Okay, so all these specific conflicts over minerals, trade corridors, tech dominance. They seem like symptoms of something bigger, right? A larger global economic transformation.
I think that's the right way to see it. The old order, the traditional liberal globalized economic system,
Yes,
largely shaped by the US post World War II, it's clearly eroding. What we're seeing now is much more about intense strategic rivalry, protectionism, prioritizing national interest, sometimes quite narrowly defined.
and the sources mention some new terms to describe this.
They do, and they're useful concepts for analysis. First, state capital entanglement. This is where the lines blur between political leadership and powerful corporate or oligarchic interests.
So decisions might favor politically connected big businesses over, say, broader public welfare or free market principles, almost like a Gordian knot tying state and capital together.
That's a good way to put it. It complicates policy making, makes it less transparent, potentially less aligned with national interest, in the broadest sense. The second concept is digital colonialism.
Okay, what's that?
It's about the power of massive global tech giants. Through their control over data, algorithms, digital infrastructure, they can exert huge influence, sometimes even shaping political discourse or economic outcomes within countries, almost like an unelected power.
Controlling the digital rails, essentially.
Exactly. So, connecting this back, this whole transformation, this messy new era, it actually presents a really pivotal moment, especially for the global south and particularly for India.
An opportunity, you mean?
An opportunity to really push for a more equitable global governance model, to move away from some of the outdated neoliberal ideas that, let's be honest, often benefited the established Western powers more. But it also means India needs a very clear domestic strategy, one that emphasizes state leadership in key strategic sectors like minerals, like tech, to ensure genuine economic sovereignty.
But that domestic strategy has to start, well, at home. Which brings us, I think, to our final and maybe most urgent topic GS2, governance and fiscal federalism. Because you can land that $15 billion Google deal, but it means nothing if the cities where these investments happen aren't functional.
Precisely, and this is where the fiscal paradox of urban India reveals a frankly massive foundational crisis. Get this: urban India generates nearly two-thirds of the entire national GDP. Two-thirds.
Right economic engine?
The absolute engines. And yet, the municipalities, the urban local bodies, the ULBS, responsible for actually running these cities, they control less than 1% of the country's total tax revenue.
Wait, say that again. Two-thirds of GDP generated, but less than 1% of tax revenue controlled locally. That dash?
Yes,
That doesn't sound right. That sounds financially insane.
it is a critical blockage. And the sources pinpoint a specific mechanism of failure: the 2017 Goods and Services Tax, the GST implementation.
How did GST cause this?
Well, when various local taxes like octroi in some places, entertainment tax, etc., were subsumed into the national GST, municipalities lost those direct revenue streams.
Ah,
The sources estimate this caused, on average, a staggering 19% drop in municipal revenues almost overnight.
wow. And the compensation mechanisms that were supposed to make up for that shortfall.
They've largely failed. They've proven inadequate, unpredictable, and just haven't reliably reached the local bodies. So the funding gap persists or even widens.
And this fundamentally undermines the whole point of the 74th Constitutional Amendment, doesn't it?
Yes,
That amendment was supposed to empower ULBS, make them PR proper self governing institutions.
that was the vision. Absolutely. Self governing institutions with functional autonomy, but the reality, because they lack fiscal devolution, because they don't have their own reliable money, they end up being mere implementing agencies for central and state government schemes.
They can't set their own priorities, can't respond effectively to local needs, because they are dependent on handouts from above.
Exactly. They have very little real autonomy. They answer upwards to the state or central government, providing the funds, not downwards to the citizens they're supposed to serve.
The UPSC relevance here seems huge. Sustainable urbanization, democratic accountability, it all seems impossible without fixing this fiscal imbalance.
Undeniable relevance. You need to completely reimagine fiscal federalism. Cities need the power to levy appropriate local tax, uh, property taxes that are actually buoyant, maybe user charges, and they need predictable formula based transfers from higher levels of government. Without financial autonomy, local government is just a shell.
Okay, so we've really covered a lot of ground today. We started with India's big digital ambitions, the Google investment, but immediately saw the link to critical energy needs and mineral dependence.
Then we navigated the tricky geopolitics, seeing how projects like IMEC are threatened by regional instability and how global rivalries over things like rare earths impact everyone.
And we ended up right back home looking at this fundamental failure in how we finance our own cities, the very engines of our economic growth.
So, what's the final thread connecting all this? I think the ultimate strategic challenge for India isn't just about attracting that next $15 billion investment or launching a counter BRI project like IMEC, important as those are.
What is it then?
It's about ensuring that the wealth generated by those investments, the economic growth happening in our cities, actually strengthens the foundations. It needs to percolate down financially, empower the local bodies responsible for making those cities livable, functional, sustainable. Domestic stability built on fiscal equity for our cities, that's maybe the real bedrock of strategic success in this new global order.
That's a powerful final thought. The conversions here global strategy, national economy, local governance. It's complex, but absolutely essential to grasp the exams. For a deeper dive into all these subjects, remember you can find comprehensive notes, detailed analysis, and practice questions to really solidify your UPSC preparation on the EduRev app.
It's available on both the Play Store and the iOS App Store. Definitely check it out for more resources.
Absolutely. We look forward to exploring the next set of critical sources with you soon here on EduRev.